There are a lot of different messages out there about birth control, from rumors about different methods on Twitter, to the often confusing list of possible side effects attached to birth control pill packs. It can be hard to know what messages to trust. It's important to talk to your medical provider with questions and when considering different birth control methods. But today, we're going to attempt to squash some of those rumors with a game of Myth or Fact Birth Control Edition. This video is for informational and educational purposes only. My name is Teresa, and I'm a comprehensive adolescent pregnancy prevention program health educator with BronxWorks. Today we're going to be going over some myths and facts about birth control, but before we get into those, let's start with some birth control basics. We're going to be talking about two types of birth control: methods prescribed by a medical professional and over-the-counter methods. Let's start with prescribed methods. First up is the IUD, or intrauterine device. There's the non-hormonal copper IUD and the hormonal IUD. Then there's the implant, or Nexplanon. Next is the shot, or Depo-Provera, birth control pills, which you take every day, the birth control patch, and lastly the birth control ring. Now let's talk over-the-counter methods. There's the external condom, you might have heard it called the male condom before, and then there's the internal condom, or you might have heard it called the female condom. Then there's the birth control sponge, and lastly, there's spermicide that can be used with a condom. There's also emergency contraception, which is a safe way to prevent pregnancy after unprotected sex or if you suspect that your birth control method might have failed. There are a few different types of emergency contraception, which we'll get into a little bit later. So here's how this game of myth or facts will go. I'll put up a statement about birth control like this one, and then you decide whether it's a myth, meaning it's untrue, or a fact, meaning it's true. You can write down your answers to keep track of how many you get correct out of the 6 statements, or you could even play against friends and family. But don't worry, we won't know your score, and even if we did, we don't judge. After we tell you if it's a myth or a fact, we'll give you an explanation why. Like for this statement, it's a fact because there are non-hormonal methods such as the copper IUD, spermicide, internal and external condoms, the diaphragm, and the sponge. Now here we go. For the first myth or fact, a minor does not need a parent's permission to get a birth control prescription. That's a fact. In New York State, a minor does not need a parent's permission to get a birth control prescription. Next myth or fact: birth control protects against sexually transmitted infections or diseases. That's a myth. In order to protect yourself against STIs, you must also use a barrier method, such as an external condom, an internal condom, or a dental dam, in addition to a birth control. However, a condom protects against both unintended pregnancy and STIs. For our third myth and fact, the morning after pill or emergency contraception is basically the same thing as an abortion. That's a myth. Emergency contraception, otherwise known as the morning after pill, helps to prevent pregnancy. The abortion pill, or medication abortion, ends pregnancy. Hormonal methods of contraception, including the morning after pill, prevent pregnancy by inhibiting ovulation and fertilization from occurring. Next up, a person can take emergency contraception up to 5 days after they have unprotected vaginal sex. That's a fact. There are 2 options for emergency contraception. The first is to get the Paragard IUD or copper IUD inserted within 120 hours after unprotected vaginal sex. The second is the emergency contraception pill. Ella works as well as it does on day 5 as it does on day 1. You have to get a prescription from a medical provider. The over-the-counter emergency contraception pill, such as Plan B One Step or Take Action, works the sooner that you take it. It's the most effective when taken up to 3 days after unprotected sex. Next myth or fact: you cannot get pregnant the first time that you have vaginal sex. That's a myth. Getting pregnant has nothing to do with if it's your or your partner's first time having vaginal sex. It's safe to skip your period while taking hormonal birth control. That's a fact. The ring, IUD, and Depo-Provera shot reduce the frequency of periods. For the birth control pill, you can skip the placebo pills and make sure that you start right into your next pack to take the active pills instead. Breakthrough or withdrawal bleeding can occur after a person misses a few periods or more. Be sure to talk to your medical provider before you make any changes to your birth control methods or with any questions. You cannot get pregnant if you have vaginal sex while on your period. That's a myth. It's unlikely for this to happen, but it can. It all depends on when a person ovulates, when a person has vaginal sex, and the length of their menstrual cycle. A person is most likely to get pregnant from sex that happens just before or during their ovulation or when an egg is released. Ovulation typically happens in between the time when a person gets their period, so usually about 14 days after their period starts, but this is a general rule. Even people who typically have periods like clockwork can have irregular cycles due to stress, hormonal changes, weight gain or loss. Everybody is different, so it's best to use a birth control even when someone is on their period. That's it for this game of Myth or Fact Birth Control Edition. All of you are star students to us. But for real, we do hope you learned something new. There's a lot of information out there and it can be confusing. The CAPP and Stray team have got your back. Check out these websites that I used as references in making this video, or speak with a medical provider if you have any more questions. Be sure to pass this video along to friends or anyone who has questions about birth control, and to check back for more videos from the CAPP and Stray team. Thanks for watching!